Verse 577. The ignorant who cherish the notion of being and non-being by imagining causes and conditions are unable to understand that all things are causeless and unborn. There are certain assumptions that we make. They're automatic assumptions. We don't even think about them. To even think about them seems absurd. To question these assumptions seems absurd. And the assumptions that I'm talking about here, and the assumptions that most of us assume, are to do with the reality of an external world and of an individual here, an individual me, experiencing it, experiencing that world, sensing it through the senses. That's the assumption. First of all, what's the point in questioning this assumption? That's a good question to ask. Well, the point is, this assumption, this system of assumed beliefs, this set of assumed beliefs is limiting. And if we're interested in getting beyond our limitations, then really we need to question our basic assumptions. I use the word limiting, but in Buddhism the word used is suffering. Because as long as there's an individual here, a me here, there's going to be somebody who suffers. And if this is a false assumption, a false belief that there's an individual me here, then there is nobody that can suffer. Let's look at the verse in a bit more detail. When we don't question these assumptions, this is described as ignorance. And the ignorant here cherish the notion of being and non-being. And it's something common to both scientists and religious types. There's an assumption that at one point the world did not exist, the universe did not exist, and then it did. It somehow came into existence in an instant. This is the religious and scientific stories, by and large, broadly speaking. And then the world proceeded on its merry way. So in science we're told that the universe is 13 billion years old. It came into being 13 billion years ago or so. And various processes have proceeded accordingly. We can talk in terms of evolution, if you like. In this verse, they talk of causes and conditions. Certain causes give rise to certain conditions. And it so happens that on this particular planet in the universe, certain causes gave rise to a condition known as life. So that's the standard, conventional understanding subscribed to by both scientific thinking and religious thinking, by and large, broadly speaking. I know we'll find scientists who say that there's no such thing as the Big Bang, and there was stuff going on before that. And if you're religious, certain religions, particularly from India, will tell us that there was no beginning. Things have been going on forever. But in modern thought, the majority of people do subscribe to the idea that things began at a certain time and have been carrying along in accordance with causes and conditions. So what's the alternative to this? If we step back from these beliefs, these assumptions, we're told here that all things are causeless and unborn. Is this not complicating things somewhat? So this is denying that there's such a thing as cause and effect. Certain causes giving rise to certain conditions, giving rise to certain effects, which are in turn causes for other conditions. But how can you say that things are unborn? The past few videos I've been concerned with attempting to argue this from a philosophical point of view. And the philosophical arguments for saying that things are causeless and unborn are rather feeble. And there's another one in 2 verses time which is equally feeble. Trying to argue this philosophically doesn't really get you anywhere. And it's quite extraordinary why anybody should come to the conclusion that all things are causeless and unborn. How could you possibly come to such a conclusion? What arguments have you got for saying this? Well, as I said, the philosophical arguments are pretty feeble, pretty weak. Especially the ones presented here in the Sagatikam, the verse summary of the Lankavatara Sutra. However, I'm going to step outside the sutra for a short while and say, well, the philosophical arguments might be rather weak, but understanding things as causeless and unborn actually makes things very simple. There are huge problems, it seems to me, in the basic understanding, the conventional understanding of a world there being sensed and experienced by a me here. And I've spoken about this often enough in the past, but just to summarise, if we believe in the senses, sensing objects out there, then really all we're experiencing, all we're in receipt of, is electrical signals. The senses turn various kinds of information into electrical signals. That's what our eyes do, our ears do, it's what our skin does. The ears turn sound into electricity, the eyes turn light into electricity, the skin, the nerves turn touch into electricity. Similarly with the nose and the palate, they turn things into electricity, they turn experiences into electricity. So all we're actually receiving is electrical signals. And science is very good at dissecting how the eye works, analysing how the ear works and so on. Yes, it all gets turned into electricity by these mechanisms. But it doesn't seem to be so good at saying what happens to that electricity, what happens to these electrical signals. We're told that the brain somehow converts these electrical signals into everything that we experience. This objective data, objective electrical data, is transformed into colour, into sound, into touch, and all the rest of it. How does that work? What kind of machine can do such a thing? I don't know if there's any answer to that, or if anybody's working on an answer. It seems to me to be a complete impossibility. But perhaps I'm being limited in my understanding of what science is capable of. what kind of miraculous machine turns electricity into the totality of our experience? That's what I'd like to know. Secondly, related to this, what science will tell us is that we can never know something in itself, because we only know things as electrical data. We only see something because of light reflected from it. We only hear something because of waves of compression in air or some other medium. Science will tell us that our senses present us with a model of reality. Okay, so the second question I would ask is, what is this model being presented to? What is in receipt of this model of reality? So these are two big questions which, for me, are total cracks, complete cracks, seismic cracks in conventional understanding. I don't think there's any satisfactory to these two questions. The first question being, what kind of machine transforms electrical data into our complete subjective experience? The second one being, what is in receipt of this model of the world that the senses present to us? So let's come back to the sutra and have a look at the next verse, 578. The mind is manifested. There is no objective world of pluralities whose cause is in the beginningless past. If there is no objective world since the beginningless past, how does individualization ever come to exist? So the last part of this verse is a question. If there's no such individualization, how come there's apparent individualization? If there's no such thing as a me, why has a situation come about where I think there's a me? But I'll look at that in the next video. Let's just look at the first part, which gives the alternative understanding to the conventional one. Mind is manifested, mind with a capital M. This seems quite mysterious, but what it is that's manifesting is awareness. You right now are aware. This is the fact that's usually overlooked because you're more interested in what you're aware of. We're caught up in what we're aware of. We're always looking for nice things to be aware of, but very often we're caught up with unpleasant things, whether it's pain, physical pain, whether it's mental and emotional pain, whether it's painful thoughts or thoughts conducive to depression. We're caught up in that sort of thing. And we're always looking for something nice. We're looking for something nice to be aware of. Maybe some erotic imagery. Maybe some future lottery win. Or maybe a just world where everybody behaves nicely to each other and doesn't try to exploit each other. So, that's what we're concerned with. We're always turning our awareness to possibilities or to things which are pleasant or unpleasant. We never turn awareness to itself. We never consider the nature of this very awareness. And this is mind with a capital M. And it's saying this is all there is. There is no objective world of pluralities. There's not a world out there, an objective independent reality consisting of lots of different things. And it doesn't begin at some point in the remote past. So this is the statement. Philosophically, I find this much simpler. You can compare it with a dream. If I'm in a dream, if this is a dream, and I'm listening to a song, how am I hearing that song in the dream? Is it being conveyed through dream air, dream compression waves to my dream ear? And my dream ear is converting that to electrical signals, and my dream brain then gives me the experience of hearing the song. No, it's just a dream. We don't think about that sort of thing, do we? We don't think about how we see things in a dream, how we interact in a dream, because it's just the same as we do in ordinary waking life. So the point here is there's another possibility. Apart from the story that we automatically subscribe to, the story of an external world and a me here, experiencing that world. There's another possibility to do with this very awareness that's hearing this. It's this very awareness, mind itself, which we come back to as enlightenment practitioners. But the last few verses have been a bit philosophical in tone. We mustn't get too caught up in that. So let's just be aware that this is what's happening. And in the next video, the next verses, we'll look at how this notion of an individual arises.